NASA scientists predict a giant asteroid will enter Earth's atmosphere in 2029. Could this be the Revelation 8 wormwood prophecy? My guest has important information, natural and supernatural, to explain what might be a massive cover-up of end-time proportions. Interested?
When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Hello everyone, my name is Jose Prado, Man-Made Survival. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. I really do appreciate it because today's video, as you can see, is a little more different than what we're used to. So I really hope you enjoy it and you share it with your friends and family all throughout your social media. And, you know, we're going to be making these type of little videos, which is really going to turn into a series that we're going to be titling E.L.E, Extinction Level Events. And we're going to be looking into different possibilities and different scenarios that from things that could actually happen, which we could actually survive if we were prepared properly. You know, for an asteroid to hit the Earth has always been within the prepper community's scope of possibilities that can happen. And if we do in fact get an asteroid to hit the Earth one day, like happened with the dinosaurs a million years ago, then we can actually have everything in place for us to withstand something like this happening. All right, so there is a greater survival probability if we actually prepare for an event like this to happen. Now, in the past, like many other things in the prepper community, it was just something that could happen in the future. But it seems now we have a timeline for one to happen. And you know, this is not the only thing. It seems like we keep adding to the list of things that could happen before the year 2030. So again, you know, it makes sense to get prepared for whatever could happen because we don't know what's exactly going to happen. Right now, here on Earth, we have the possibility of war between Russia and Ukraine, Taiwan and, and China, Iran and Israel, and the United States with everybody else, right? We also have the possibility of this global economic collapse that would also bring a lot of death and poverty and famine and everything else. But now we're adding this asteroid that could potentially be happening in the year 2029. So, we're going to get into all of that in the podcast. What I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be showing you the clips where Tom Horn is going to be explaining what he saw in his dream prophetically and stuff like that. And then I'm going to come back and give you the prepper perspective into surviving something like this. Now, I do want to mention, since this has a lot to do with what the Bible says, right? I don't know. I cannot tell you for sure that he is correct that this involves the Bible in it, because, you know, we cannot fight against God. We're never gonna win against God. That's not what I'm suggesting in this video at all. But we do have the possibility, right? It is a scientific thing that Apophis has been, found, and they're saying that it could potentially hit. Maybe not now in 2029, but I think they're saying like 1940 something, or 2040 something, or 2060 somewhere right there. So we do have the possibility of an asteroid hitting one day. So we have to make sure that we're ready for it whenever it happens. Now, if this is in fact Bible prophecy, then we have to make sure that we are prepared spiritually more than physically, because if this is the end times events, then we know how it's going to end, especially if you're a Christian. You know how it's going to end. But if this is just a natural event that could happen in this earth, then we have to get prepared for it, and we can have the best outcome if we are in fact prepared for something like this. All right, but before I get into all the videos and all the comments that I'm going to be giving you, I do want to remind you that this podcast is sponsored by you through the ManMadeSurvivalStore.com. The ManMadeSurvivalStore.com is going to have everything you need for your preparedness. And also, what's in the front page is the free book that I'm giving away for free. I do want to say that we're going to need help with the shipping if you do decide to get the book. So the book retails for $24.99 and the shipping is $9.99. So you are in fact getting it for free. So I would really appreciate it if you can order it and, give it to a friend, read it yourself, look at the scenarios that I'm talking about in the book. I've been told plenty of times where people have actually ordered the book that is really easy to read, easy to understand. But that is the goal, and I'm glad that is how it turned out. So I would encourage you to go ahead and get it. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this podcast. So I started with the introduction from Seth Roth. It's Supernatural, and he's going to be talking to Tom Horn about this asteroid that could potentially hit the Earth. Now, I'm going to be showing you a clip where Tom Horn describes the asteroid, how big it is, how fast it's coming, and all of that, all right? So pay close attention to the details because that is going to matter a lot later on, all right? Here's that video.
Yeah, speaking of a massive stone, give me some of the facts about how large it'll be and some of the facts about Apophis.
Yeah, it was discovered at the Kitt Peak National Observatory 2004. That's when NASA named it Apophis. It is 370 meters wide, or 1,200 foot wide, or 4 NFL football fields wide. It weighs an estimated 20 million metric tons. It is traveling
20 million?
20 million. It's traveling at 28,000 miles per hour. And I'm telling you, it's going to hit the Earth. Here's what scientists say. If it does, and this is NASA's experts, if it does hit the Earth, their mapping, by the way, technology tells them it'll probably come down somewhere around the border of Mexico and California, so a highly densely populated area. Another NASA scientist said, think of it this way. Take every nuclear warhead that is on Earth today, China, America, Russia, everybody, put them in one place and let them go off all at one time. And that's what's going to happen when Apophis strikes the Earth.
My goodness. Well, why do you say it's a massive cover-up?
Yeah, well, so my friend at NASA, he was the one that put me on the trail. They don't want this information getting out any sooner than it's going to. By 2025, people will be able to look up in space and see this with their home telescopes, fairly sophisticated telescopes. 2 years after that, they'll be able to look up in space and see it with the naked eye. By that time, there's going to be mass chaos and panic. So right now, they're doing mitigation efforts in the background, which we can talk about. This is part of Trump's Space Force, trying to figure out a way that they can stop this from impacting the Earth.
Now, all right, so I wanted to start with that video because now you listen to how big it is, how fast it's coming, all of that. And the reason that is important is because it's an actual asteroid that NASA has discovered and they named it. Okay, so we do have, at least at the scientific level, we do have an asteroid out there that is going to be coming really close to the Earth. And is it going to hit? We don't know, but we must get prepared for it because now we know about it, okay? We're going to be knowing before a lot of people know about it, before it gets to the point where we can actually see it with our naked eye. And for us to get prepared when we are able to see it by then, it might be a little too late because if COVID-19 or, if that pandemic taught us anything, is that when people freak out, they will buy everything at the store. It will clean it. They will clean it out and they won't care who has some or who doesn't. So as always, preparedness is essential because that means that you're going to have everything in place before anything happens, before the crowds freak out, before everybody, it starts losing their mind and starts going crazy. So again, we have the scientific base for it. Now, will it hit? I don't know. But what I'm going to be doing here in just seconds, I'm going to be showing the video of Tom Horn actually explaining what he saw, because that is going to be the most important part, because that's where I come in, and I'm going to be showing you pretty much how to survive it if it does happen, because depending on where you are around the world when this thing actually hits, you can take certain steps. Okay, again, if this is Bible prophecy, if this is part of actual revelation where wormwood comes down and it poisons the waters, then there's nothing we can do about it. We better get ready spiritually to go with God. Okay, but if it's just a natural event that's going to happen, then we can do a lot of stuff to make sure that our survival rate is actually higher than it would be if we did not prepare at all. All right, so here's that video.
Okay, well, you had another sealed instruction. It was sheer Bible prophecy from Revelation 8.
Yeah, so this one was the most terrifying experience I've ever personally had, which kind of conflicts with me because you know me, Sid. I like to be positive. I like to talk
Right.
about positive things. I like to be filled with hope. So approximately 1 year ago now, went to bed, same scenario, 2 a.m. in the morning, and all of a sudden, I woke up into this panoramic almost like a film that's playing out in front of me, and I'm in the middle of it. And what I first thought I was looking at was a giant fiery dragon, deep up in space, moving, undulating like a serpent, racing towards the Earth. Then suddenly my point of view changed, and now I was up above the object, and I could see that it was not a fiery dragon, but rather it was a giant space rock, an asteroid. And the way it was turning as it was moving through the space in the light of the sun was glistening off of the elements of the stone. It only gave it the appearance that it was moving back and forth. Now, all of a sudden, I'm back on Earth again. And now I am surrounded by literally tens of thousands of people, and we are on a mountain. And we are running for our lives. And people everywhere are screaming and begging God to deliver them from what is coming. And I turn and I look over my shoulder, and I can see this fiery mountain, basically, this giant rock entering into the atmosphere, burning as it comes through the atmosphere, breaking apart as it comes through the atmosphere. A huge part of it strikes the ocean, a huge part of it strikes the earth, and all of a sudden, the earth is shaking so violently that none of us can stand up. We're all knocked off of our feet. It was the most horrific thing. I can hear this terrible sound as if the earth is literally cracking, like the mantle of the earth is breaking apart. And now I'm looking back over my shoulder again in this giant wall of water, just an enormous tsunami, hundreds of feet tall, coming up over the top of this mountain. And again, everybody's trying to run. Then these, what felt like large hands, come down underneath my arms and lift me up into space, and now I'm looking down upon the earth. And here's an important part about this entire thing. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what would happen if an asteroid of that size were to impact the earth. But what I saw, I later found to be exactly how scientists describe what would transpire. With the waters boiling beneath this giant burning rock, the aerosol coming up off of that, entering into the upper atmosphere, setting in motion hurricane activity, the second part hitting the earth, causing a volcano to begin erupting,
So what
filling
you
the
saw,
atmosphere.
what
Yes.
you saw is what would actually happen, but you didn't have the knowledge
No, I didn't.
of what would actually happen from a scientific viewpoint, but you still saw it.
Yeah. And to use street lingo, it freaked me out.
Well,
when
you
I started
also-
doing the research, it really freaked me out. Here's what I believe. I believe it because I saw it. I believe it because what I saw and the way it came to me has not yet one time in my life failed, including the resignation of Pope Benedict against all odds. It has not happened one time yet that it didn't unfold exactly the way I saw it. So I'm speaking from personal experience, but it's been validated by the facts after the fact. So I believe it in all my heart. I will look you in the eye and give you a new prediction, like I did when I told you the Pope was going to resign and everybody said it would never happen. In April of 2029, Apophis is going to strike the earth.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Tom has good reasons to believe that.
All right, so really, really important. Now we have a date, April of 2029. So we have, what, roughly 8 years for us to get prepared for this? And 8 years is a long time. Okay, so that's why it's important for us to have this information way beforehand. But here's the thing about future events. You have to make sure that you prepare for what you're going to need in those days. Because, all right, for example, if you're preparing and your children already have, their preps in place, you have to look at how old they're going to be when that happens so you can have their preps in place for them too. So there's some of the preps that are going to be continuing because, food will eventually come to the close to its expiration date. But when that happens, and you kind of have to replace it, and that's going to prolong the storage time. But when we're talking about clothing and shoes and stuff like that you may be reserving for them for a future event, if you're going to be able to prepare for it now, you can go ahead and set aside something for the future that is going to make it to where they're going to have what they need then, and that's going to be including all the other preps as well. So that's why it's important for us to see this information and look and think long term. All right, so there's several things that he talked about that would happen if an asteroid in fact did come and it did hit in the border of Mexico and the United States, over there where California would be. All right, so there would be a tsunami, and he said hurricane force winds that would actually set off hurricanes. Volcanoes will be going off, and that will cause a nuclear winter. All right, so first off, with the tsunami, as I mentioned earlier, it depends where you are around the world. Is how affected you're gonna be by that, by that tsunami. If it's coming in that fast and it's gonna, do that kind of damage, then, all the other coasts all around the world will have to get prepared for the tsunami to come in. Now, people in California, the reach of the tsunami may be a lot further away inland than it would be on the other side of the world, because it would have a lot more force coming in. And of course, the one only prep that you can actually do to I guess avoid the wave is to be in higher ground. And then the aftermath after that is what you're actually dealing with, which of course would be drinkable water, which you would need your purification tablets, your water filters, and everything like that. For as far as food is concerned, then the same thing. That is the reason why you want to have a bug allocation outside of the area where you're in, hopefully in another state if you're able to, and have all your preps there. Because let's say California becomes, part of the sea, maybe in Nevada or New Mexico or another nearby place, it may be totally dry. And if you have a bug allocation to that area, then you're going to be better off. All right. And that is something that you can actually be able to prepare for better in the future, because once Apophis, if it's in fact coming that close and people are going to be able to look at it with their naked eye, then, people are going to put more pressure on the scientists to give us more of an accurate what if it does hit the Earth. So they're going to have the simulations come through and the calculations. They're going to say, if it does hit the Earth and it makes a wave, then, it's going to make it to where it's going to come in, 20 miles inland. So everybody 20 to 30 miles inland, they're going to have to prepare to be able to move and evacuate the area. All right. So those are the type of things that are going to become more clear later on, if in fact it does hit the Earth. The next thing, he said that it would have hurricanes. Of course that would happen, but hurricanes are very localized as well. That's the the silver lining in this type of disasters, is that even it has a chain reaction with other things. They're very localized. It's not like a global type thing. But the thing that could actually make it a global scenario is all that debris that would go up in the space, up in the air, and it'd be carried out by the jet stream. Now, you're seeing a picture right now on your screen, and if you're listening to this through the speaker platform, you can go on YouTube, or you can go on brightm.com or other social media where we are putting this video through, and you can see how typically the jet stream comes, in the United States. It's usually from west to east, and the pattern usually changes. It has more curves, it's more straight line. Those are going to be changing, or those actually change day to day, and closer to the day, we're going to have more of an idea how the jet stream is going to look like. But if you go and look at the border between Mexico and California, or the United States, you see that the jet stream has more of a curve going down. So not necessarily would it push it up into the United States, but I guess, like I said a minute ago, it depends on how the jet stream looks like in those days. And that's 8 years from now. So there might be tools who can predict it more accurately, or maybe the closer we get to the date, we're gonna know better. But the point is that you have to look at that, because what happens is that all that will create a nuclear winter. That whole entire area will experience famine. It would experience droughts and stuff like that, especially in the California area where we have a lot of our crops growing. So that is the reason why you have to make sure that you have food and water. Now, With this type of debris flying all in the atmosphere, all throughout the air and everything like that, wherever it settles, it takes about 3 years for all of that to come down out of the atmosphere and let the sunlight come through. All right, because if it's up in the air in the atmosphere, it's going to block the sunlight, and it would create a nuclear winter to where we couldn't grow any crops, or at least the area that is affected. Now, let's say it happens like, you know, the mainstream scientists say that happened with the dinosaurs, where pretty much the entire globe was covered in dust, and, you know, the animals couldn't find any food. Therefore, they all died. What we can do is that we can have our preps, you know, our stocks of food and water and everything in place that will last more than 3 years, because that's what's projected for, you know, for this type of event where we have so much debris in the atmosphere, and the time it would take for it to come back down to the earth and let the sunlight through to where we could actually start growing crops again. Okay, and again, this is going to be a global event that is going to panic very many people, a lot of governments. And, you know, if we already blew ourselves up because we went into a war and we add this to the equation, then the suffering would be a lot greater. That is the reason why you have to look at this information now and prepare for that future that could potentially happen. All right, and that the next one would be volcanoes going off. And that is actually going to be another topic that I'm going to get into greater detail, because that could also create a extinction level event if enough volcanoes actually do go off, which is something that we're experiencing right now, right? Especially in the local areas of those volcanoes. So we can actually take the steps to make sure that we have a better outcome when these things happen. And, you know, the Bible does say that we're going to see these things, a lot more things are going to happen. It's going to be a time so bad that it has never happened like that again, or it hasn't happened like that in the past and will never happen again. All right, so at least that's the good thing that we can look forward to. If this is in fact Bible prophecy being fulfilled, because we're really close to Jesus Christ coming back, then for us Christians, all we can do is rejoice. You know, I much rather be in heaven with my family, with my kids, and, you know, with everybody that I love, than stay on earth and continue to suffer and continue to work and pay bills and all that. So for the Christian community, that is actually not that bad of a thing to happen. Okay, but for the rest of the world, it's going to be a time of uncertainty. Now, I really do not think that if the asteroid does hit the earth on April 2029, it's not going to devastate the entire earth, because in the Bible it does say that there's a bunch of other things that's going to happen. You know, because if I'm not mistaken, just out of this alone, it's going to kill about 2 billion people. And even though 2 billion people is a lot of people, you know, 1/3 of the earth, even though that's a lot of people, there's still billions of people left on the earth which are going to suffer the following things that's going to happen. So that is the reason why we have to make sure that we look, we know, we study, and we can prepare for bad things to happen. Again, we're not fighting against God, which is what we're doing, is that if we happen to be a survivor of whatever it is that is going to unfold, however it is that it's going to unfold, you know, in what order, you know, you and your family are going to be better prepared to live the aftermath. All right, that's what we're preparing for the aftermath. And if you're still alive, because, you know, if the asteroid hits in the middle of your home, then you have nothing else to worry about. You know, you're going to be in the heaven, you're going to be in the afterlife, you know, shortly after. But if you live far off, for example, it's going to hit in California, but if you live in New York, you're going to live the consequences or the aftermath of that asteroid actually hitting, you know, the border of Mexico and the United States out in the sea. So that is the reason why we prepare for anything to happen, and we have to make sure that we have everything in place. And the 14 categories that I give you, with the 4 that focus on the food supply chain, all of those cover any scenario whatsoever. All right, yes, you may be preparing for one specific thing, like nuclear war. You know, you have your suit and your mask and your defibrillators and everything else, which are not included in the categories, but those can be branched off once you have all of this as your base, and then whatever happens, you're going to be able to withstand, especially if it does not happen in your area and you just live in the aftermath of it. All right, so that is the reason why I want to make these videos of the extension level events because it looks like Bible prophecy is in fact unfolding right before our eyes, and we have to make sure that we are good spiritually, and that we confess our sins, that we try to live as holy as possible. And I'm saying this to you, but I'm looking at myself in the camera, so I'm actually talking to myself. And we have to make sure that we're prepared for that day, that if we die in the asteroid, or before then or after that, that it doesn't matter when we actually do die, that our name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and we can actually stay in heaven and live happily ever after, worshiping Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit for all eternity, and and be there with our friends and family and all the people that we love. So if you're not a Christian, I really do hope that you consider it, that you look into Christianity, that you put your faith in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And I do have Christians who listen to this podcast, and I also have people who do not believe in Christianity who listen to this podcast. But as you know, I am a Christian myself, so you are going to get the Christian message. So I really do hope that you stayed all the way to the end. I hope you share this information with your friends and family. This video wasn't too bad. It's about 28 minutes long before I even add the videos. So it's going to be in the range between 20 and 30 minutes. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to share this one with your friends and family, especially with all the video that I put on there and all the pictures and everything like that. So I would really appreciate it if you can share this one all throughout your social media, to leave your comment, subscribe to the channels, and just do your thing to help this video and this podcast grow even more, so more people can get this information. All right, so for the Perfect Community, we have a bright future simply because things are in fact happening. Okay, if we were in a time of peace where nothing is really happening, then we would have even more time to prepare. But now it looks like we have to have the sense of urgency to make sure that we learn everything we can about food, growing food and canning food and storing food and everything like that, on how to collect water, how to clean water, how to make it portable for you and your animals, and everything else that I talk about in all the other categories. So I really do hope that you enjoy this. Please share this information with your friends and family, and remember, my name is Jose Prado, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.